Hello and welcome to the Any Art Netty baking channel. Now in this one I'm going to be making homemade marmalade. So this is one really if you've got enough time and patience. It's not a quick process and I'm going to try and keep it as simple and easy to follow as possible. It's definitely worth making. Homemade tastes so much better than one you buy in the shop. And you can have the shred, the orange shred, as thin or as thick as you want. Now I'd highly recommend using Seville oranges. I had to go with what I was able to get in the shops, and they do make a lovely gift as well. So I hope you enjoy this and I'll show you how I personally make marmalade. So I've not got a kilogram of oranges, but I'll tell you my recipe and I adapted it. So for 2 people it made about 6 jars of marmalade. So I've got a kilogram of oranges, 1 lemon which I juiced. You can use the rind in the lemon as well, but I prefer not to. So what I'd highly recommend for you to do is wash and scrub those oranges first. Now a tip I learnt off Delia Smith was to just get a knob of butter there. That's a vegan friendly butter as well, it's just for making cakes and stuff like that. And to coat the inner of the pan, you can use a preserving pan, which is highly recommended. I'm using this pan because it works brilliantly for jam. That stops any burning or anything like that, anything sinister happening, because it's a long slow process. You've got to make them boil the oranges for about 2 hours, so you don't want any burning or anything like that, which will affect the flavour. So nice tip off Delia Smith there. And I'm going to add 2 litres of water, that's cold water, to that pan. Get that on the stove ready. And I'm just going to prepare my oranges, and yes, again that's 1 kilogram of oranges. So with sugar wise you'd use 2 kilograms, that's double. And you can use the jam sugar, but there is a method with this muslin cloth which I'm just getting now, where that will get the pectin for you that you need to be able to set the jam. So I'd actually prefer to use a say 30 by 30 centimetre piece of muslin, but I couldn't get hold of that, I didn't have it, so I went with what I had in, and make sure it's sterile and everything like that, that it's clean and okay to use for food. So I've halved my oranges, I'm just getting all the juice out now, and I'm going to put the peel which is left to one side, and all that juice is just going to go into a jar there, an empty jar, and I shall add that to the water when it's ready. So again, one of my tips for this is to use Seville oranges. You definitely will notice a difference, but there is a massive difference anyway because of it being homemade. There's nothing like it. So that piece of muslin cloth there, whatever's collecting in that yellow before it goes through to the juice bit, I'll show you again when I do it. See this? All of that, put that into the muslin cloth. You want to collect all of that because that's where I don't want to say any nasty words, like all the bits of orange with the seeds and everything like that, that will have all the pectin in it, which will help for the marmalade, the jam, to set. So keep hold of that. So here, but I'm hoping Paddington will come round or something, aren't I? So yeah, I've definitely got a spare jar for him, so yeah, that's all the juice there. I think it was 4 or 5 oranges, wasn't it? And again, the lemon, I'll juice that at the end, I'm literally just using the juice because it is a good kind of antiseptic. Naturally, it's a good preserving. But you got the 2 kilograms of sugar, which is gonna help to preserve as well and make sure that it keeps and it doesn't go mouldy. But the big one for that is to make sure the jars that you're putting it in are 100% sterile. Can't speak to 100% sterile. So what I'm doing now is I'm cutting up the rind, which I kept aside there. Now you can make that as thick or as thin as you want to. I've made it quite thick because me and my partner prefer it that way. But if you don't like that, you can make them as thin as you want because this is your own marmalade. I've added all that juice to the pan there, and I've put the muslin cloth, and what I've done is I've tied it up and I've hung it on the handle of the pan, and that is going into the jam and it's going to slowly seep. But once that's done and it's got to your boiling point, I'll show you the moment, I'll tell you the moment, point it out. You're going to squeeze everything you can out of that muslin cloth into the pan, and I realise actually I didn't get the footage, but what you'll do is I'll link you to the Delia recipe which shows how to do it. Squeeze everything you can, make sure you cool it down first, otherwise you will burn your hands, which isn't very nice, but make sure it's cooled first. Yeah, squeeze everything in within the muslin cloth into that. Make sure everything's intact in the muslin cloth so you don't get all the horrible seeds in it and things like that. And that'll be all the pectin that you need for it to be able to set. Obviously, another big thing is that it hits the right temperature, which is around about 104, 105 degrees. Now I highly recommend using a jam thermometer. I'd highly recommend using a jam thermometer, but there is a method with plates which I'd use for this as well, just to be doubly sure, where you put the plates into the freezer. Put a little bit of when you think it's ready, the marmalade onto the plate. You should leave the plates for about maybe a couple of hours in the freezer, so they are nice and cold. Leave it for a minute and it should wrinkle. Now I've done that in a previous video. I'll link you to that in the description below so you can see that process. Also in the Delia video, which I followed because I find her videos very interesting, relaxing, and also very thorough. She's very good with recipes. She actually does do that process as well and explains it brilliantly, so I shall leave that in the description. Right, so I've got my orange peel there, the orange juice, the water, and the inside of the orange with all the seeds and everything in it is seeping on that pan. You can just see the muslin cloth there around the handle, and that is in there slowly seeping into the marmalade mix. And I've got my jam thermometer and we're just going to get that up to boiling point. So that one of the big tricks with this as well is not to overboil it, and not to, when you're going to put it into the jars, don't cool it too much. I get to about 85 degrees, but don't cool it any less than that really, or don't do any more than that. To minimise risks of scalding, hurting yourself, anything like that, do use a jam funnel. I highly recommend that. Also, if you've managed to get Seville oranges, but you're in a position where you have to freeze them or anything like that, do make sure, I've read up on this, not to make sure that they're not overripe, because when you come to make your jam and cook the oranges, they may go black, and that's not very nice looking jam by the sounds of it. So yeah, make sure that they're not overripe, because I think the first bite is with the eyes, and if it's black jam, it's not going to look very nice, is it? So we're just going to reach boiling point there with that jam, and when we get to that, I'll be right back.
I move on each and every day. The past is where it stays. Way back a year ago.
So some tips for sanitizing the jars is I use sometimes a vegetable steamer, and I'll completely clean it, but I do like to make sure before that I wash the jars out thoroughly with boiling hot scalding water and also a dish soap, and the lids as well, which is very important. Then I'll put them in the steamer. Other methods will be to wash them completely with boiling scalding hot water and dish soap, and to put them in the oven for 5 minutes as well, but as clean as you can get them. They've got to be clean as a whistle to avoid any kind of mould or furry jam hatch. You do not want that. So, as you can see there, the marmalade has reduced down a lot, because you can see there's kind of gone down an inch. So I'm going to take out that muslin now, and I'm going to squeeze every single bit of that I can out into a Sports Direct mug, which is probably the biggest mug you can get in the UK. Probably if you're elsewhere you won't know what that is, but it's a giant mug. If you spill that, your house is flooded. So I'm going to add my sugar into that and whisk it up. I find is the best method, and you want to boil that again, bring it to the boil until it's completely dissolved. Now if you put a wooden spoon in there, and when you think it's ready, lift the back of the wooden spoon out of it, you'll be able to see that the sugar crystals have dissolved. Now if it's got to that point, you are just about ready. So we're going to bring that to the boil again, and hopefully it'll be at the right point where we're able to get the jam ready as such. I do find that process now where it's reduced down, what I find is a lot of recipes say about half an hour, but I've found mine took about an hour and a half. It could take 2 hours. I'd reduce it down enough, maybe about the same as I've done, maybe an inch more. Not too much though, but yeah, maybe about an hour and a half is a good guideline for that point. So we're nearly reaching boiling point again, and as I say, make sure all the crystals have set and you've got it to your jam setting temperature, which is around about 104, 105 degrees. Now the good thing with these thermometers is it's got it marked on. I'd still do the test with the plates which have been in the freezer, and if it wrinkles, it's ready pretty much. So here we go again. It is kind of, if you're not in the mood for this, I wouldn't do it at all. You've got to be in the mood for it. It's a slow process and it does take a lot of time, 3 or 4 hours. I'm just giving that a good mix. Now a good test that is ready as well before you put your sugar in is to get, obviously don't scald yourself, be careful. Get one of the bits of orange rind and squeeze it, and if it quite easily squishes and it's tender, it's ready. You'll find that the white inside it as well is completely gone. So there I did have that footage. I'm squeezing that muslin cloth, all the contents of that, as much as you can get out, into that, and then we're going to add it into the jam because we've reached the boiling point. It's ready to do that process. And there we go. I probably got a bit more out of that actually than off camera, so that's probably the bit I missed. So yeah, get as much of that as you can. But you don't, obviously the muslin cloth is going to stop any of the seeds getting into that. You don't want them at all, they're nasty. So the other thing with marmalade as well, I've heard it goes really, really well with sausages. I've heard that a lot. And also, I wouldn't overcomplicate anything ingredients wise, like adding chilli and adding cardamom and stuff like that, because it's nice how it is, and you don't want to take away, especially if you've used Seville oranges, you don't want to take away any of that lovely flavour. It's good enough as it is, really. So I found that this took about half an hour to boil and get ready and make sure that it was at the right temperature. It might be more for you. Just make sure you put it on a rolling boil, and I wouldn't really interfere with it too much because it's going to do what it does anyway. Just keep it on that rolling boil and just keep taking out a tablespoon and testing it to make sure that it wrinkles, and you'll know it's right then. And then once you've reached that setting temperature of 104, 105, I would leave it at room temperature, get it down to about 85 degrees, and then you're ready with your jars to fill them, and then leave it to cool until room temperature, and then put them in your fridge. I find if you put them in when it's hot, it's going to affect the temperature of your fridge, and you don't want to do that. So that's something what it should look like when it's ready. So you can see all the kind of stuff around the edge. You can get rid of that because it's not really very pretty. It won't affect the flavour at all, that much at all. Really, I shouldn't think it would affect it at all. So I've put it into a jar because I haven't got any funnels, and I'm just pouring that into the jars ready. And I'm going to put a wax seal on top of the jars, wipe them down because they've been a bit messy, and then they're ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed that. I do have some more jam recipes up, one being plum and cinnamon, which is really nice. There's a few. I think I made a lemon curd as well, which was really nice. I'm still working on a vegan version of that. So on go the wax seals. I hope that was enjoyable, informative, easy to follow. Again, I'll link Delia's because it's fantastic, great advice in that. If you've got any recipes you want me to turn vegan, gluten-free, any allergy-free, please do let me know and I'll do my best. Right, I'm off with Paddington to enjoy some marmalade, and I shall see you again soon. Bye for now.